Colin King.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the weekend just gone, we had the most positive blue-green forum that one could imagine. It was held in Kaikoura and it culminated in a lot of hard work, somewhere in the region of 8 or 9 years of collaborative governance, and on the Sunday at the Tikahanga Marae, the Prime Minister gave the government's response to the Te Kurawai, and it would have to say, from being the Member of Parliament for Kaikoura, that it was incredibly positive. And when you look at the size and scope and the complexity of what was established through the Te Kurawai, the Titai o Morakura, it's a marine reserve, a whale sanctuary, a New Zealand fur seal sanctuary, 5 customary fishery areas, 2 Taipori local fisheries and 3 Maitaitai reserves. There will be an advisory committee and fishing regulations that are specific to the area. Just to help the listeners to the general debate understand just the scope of this, it spans between the Conway River and the Clarence River, and it has been a work of collaborative governance. And when you look at it, the determination of this government was to ensure that we had an asset for generations to come, not a liability. When you look at the work that this government has done around environmental issues, Mr. Speaker, you have got to say that they are at the very forefront of global policy establishment. Look at the Land and Water Forum, what a great way forward that has produced around a really difficult situation. The EEZ legislation that it now ensures that when anybody wants to do anything into the economic zone is that they have got to follow a regulation. And it's worth remembering that really under Labor there was no regulation. There were 34 wells drilled out in that ocean space under no regulations whatsoever. So when you actually look at this government's record around ensuring that there's enduring assets, we want to also be able to look at what the Labor government did. And I go back to a situation in the Kaikoura electorate when the Prime Minister of the time pilfered all the money out of the Arts, Culture and Heritage Fund and purchased for $43 million a leasehold property in North Canterbury. Can we say that that is an asset to the country, to future generations? We cannot say that, because at the moment there is nobody managing the noxious weeds, the pests and whatever else is growing there. So when we make a comparison between all the talk of what is occurring between the Greens and Labor, we have got to realise that this is a very, very serious combination. Effectively, we've only got to look across the Strait, or the Tasman Sea, to Tasmania, and we see what such a relationship would bring about. A lot of the conversation we've been hearing in the Parliament here is around Julianne Genter talking about cycleways and such like. I would just like to draw the Labor Party's attention to the point of view that when you actually look at getting your exports from the rural community into where they are further processed and then off to the ports, you have got to have first-class highway systems. So there's obviously a lot of conflict between the Greens and Labor, and there's no doubt about it, Mr. Speaker, that Shane Jones has got it right. I mean, he's on our Primary Production Select Committee, and he is a level-headed sort of a person who knows what makes 2 and 2. And when you look at what's happened in Tasmania, the result there, the decimation of Labor, because of that relationship with the Greens, what have we seen? We see 20% unemployment amongst the youth. We see a single purchasing agency for power, and we've had a 12% rise in electricity prices annually. So Tasmania was advised by every other state in Australia, do not get into bed with the Green Party. That is something that we've got to be particularly reminding the Labor Party of, that when they speak about their level of support, they talk about the level of the left, the lobby of the left. In actual fact, they're a combination. a combination of the Greens and Labor, and that will not last. The Labor Party over in Tasmania had to sack their Green MPs and then call an election. So let's look at what we leave as an inheritance to our future generations by way of assets, not liabilities. Let New Zealand be aware we cannot afford to have a blue
The member's time has expired. Chris Hipkins.
Mr Speaker, I say to what's his name, Colin King, who was talking about the Blue Greens conference, when you mix blue and green like that, you get a haughty shade of purple.